Lev here with this week's 3 Minutes with Ingber&Weinberg. Specifically, what I wanted to discuss was the importance of investigations as they relate to COVID-19 and kind of the world we're dealing with at this point. I recently attended a seminar which covered various topics and aspects that impact workers' compensation today, and one of the obvious topics was COVID-19 claims and how they're being handled. What was particularly surprising was the proportion of denied and delayed COVID claims. The seminar was hosted by a well-known claims administrator who's local to Southern California. They've had several hundred COVID-19 claims filed since February. Interestingly, 80% of those claims have either been denied or delayed. What was even more surprising was that 60% of the claims that were filed during the governor's order period were denied. Now, these figures were surprising both to me, as I'm sure they're surprising to many of you, in part because many of us really anticipated that at least a large number of COVID-19 claims would be accepted. Now, there are a few explanations provided as to why there's such a high denial rate, and I want to touch on those quickly. One of the key things to keep in mind, especially as it relates to Governor Newsom's order, was the order included a rebuttable presumption, and that is key to the investigation process. So what we mean is that the presumption can be overcome with evidence of a contrary or some other source of possible infection. It appears that many of the claims that are being filed are either being filed out of caution or they're being filed before an employee has tested positive for COVID-19. There are some cases where claims are being filed where the employee is in contact with another individual who tested positive, but they haven't yet either been tested themselves or they've tested and the results haven't come in yet, so they're prematurely filing a claim. In some other cases, employers or employees seem to exhibit at least some of the symptoms that are associated with COVID-19 and they rush to file a claim, only to later discover that the test result comes back negative. Now, we should also keep in mind that a lot of people are working from home, or at the very least, they're not working in their traditional work atmosphere. Therefore, the first few weeks after a claim is filed is crucial. Okay, when a claim is reported, an investigation needs to occur immediately. And in many of the COVID-19 cases, where people are working from home or outside of their traditional work environment and they contract COVID-19, they're finding situations where they're contracting the virus from another person, and that other person many times is either a spouse, a partner, a roommate, another family member, and this isn't necessarily related to work. So there's some important questions to keep in mind during the investigation. We want to look and see if there's any non-work related activities that employee may have recently taken part in. Maybe look at what hobbies they may have as possibly an alternative source of the infection. Look into who they live with. Are they living with someone else? Is there anyone else in the home or the residence? Again, family, friends, roommates, parents. Look at the general health of the individual. Look to see if a person was tested, where they were tested, when they were tested, how they were tested. One interesting point that was brought up is there are circumstances where an employee tests positive for COVID-19, however, they are not showing any symptoms or the symptoms are very mild. So you want to keep that in mind. The issues with COVID-19 are continually developing, and we seem to learn more and more every single day. There's constantly new information coming out. But there are some questions that we still don't know. They're unknown. For example, when does someone with COVID-19 reach MMI, or are they permanent and stationary? How would a physician go upon determining whether or not someone is MMI? What are some of the long-term considerations and physical consequences for things like heart damage or lung damage that are associated or maybe a result of COVID-19? And how are we going to treat them? These are all really good questions, and at this point, we just don't know. the jury is still out and the legislature is yet to provide guidance on this. So, in summary, I want to remind and stress the importance of that investigation period, where you want to be as thorough as you can. Don't just look at the employee and narrow your investigation there, but expand the investigation. Look at some other features, other areas. Who have they come in contact with? What are their interests? What activities have they performed? And this will give you a better picture of how to best work with that claim. Thank you for your time. We'll see you next week with Ingber&Weinberg.